Analysis at We Transact. And today for the quarterly Q3 RealRaise Summit, I'm very excited about this panel of amazing innovation and entrepreneurship ecosystem leaders that we have here today. This is like a huge collection across the country. They're joining us at probably one of the busiest times of their year. So we really are grateful for them to take this hour with us and share with us what it is that they're doing and why it's so exciting to focus on them today and the opportunities and resources available. We really think this is going to align with everybody here in the virtual village. So I'm going to pass it over to them. No better way to make the introductions than themselves. Hear it straight from the source. They are all amazing and have many different superpowers. So we have a really cool panel lined up. I'm just going to pass the mic around the room so you guys can pass it to the next person. Let's start with Jeremy Patterson. Jeremy is at Wichita State University. He's going to introduce his program, what he's part of, who he is. He's one of our We Transact partners and white labels as well. We've been working with them. So I'm going to pass it to you first, Jeremy. Introduce yourself to the virtual village.
Thanks, and thanks for letting me go first. And I am a professor, so I might talk the whole hour, right? So it's part of our training. So I'm a dean at Wichita State University, so in Wichita, Kansas, for those of you that fly over and don't necessarily know where we are. But so it's a urban university, so we're in a community that's about 500,000 people. And so it's a public university. And the other hat that I wear is I'm executive director for the Office of Innovation and New Ventures. So we have a number of programs that, we've really scaled. And in the past decade, the university has more than doubled in size, so in physical and everything else. And that's really driven by innovation programs and industry partnerships. But what I think is innovative as far as academics go is the role that I have as a dean and being one of those weird bleeding academics and playing this bridge between industry and trying to move something in the market, and being able to have that role, being able to go into a lab and having somebody being able to know what it means to try to talk about commercialization with somebody that's also trying to publish. So it's one of those kind of relationships that we've really tried to focus on. And then the other part is building a college that sort of is built into an accelerator. So a place where students can come. We're in a city of 500,000 people with no medical school and no accelerator or incubator in the community system. So we've really built it out so that way people in the community would be able to come in and have resources from the university built around them and then be able to get a degree, right? So at the same time, so counting all that effort towards something. And I'll pass this off. So let's hand it over to Ben.
And I'm very excited for everybody to dive in on some of the similarities and all the unique things you guys are doing. This is great, Jeremy. Passing to Ben.
Yeah, for sure. Hey, thanks. My name is Ben Chelser. I'm the Director of Venture Creation Acceleration at the Roux Institute, which is a part of Northeastern University that was launched 2 years ago with a $200 million gift to help transform or $200 million gifts actually is probably properly the way to say it, to help transform Maine's economy and plan for the next 100 years of economic development in the state. We'll talk about this a little bit later, I assume, but we take a little bit different view of entrepreneurship because we have such a specific goal of economic development. And also because when we launched, we didn't have any students. And so, right, how do you do entrepreneurship without students? And so we do a lot of actually bringing entrepreneurship into the university as opposed to bring ideas out of the university. And I'm super excited to talk about that. In a previous life, I was the founder of a company called Imperfect Foods, which was an online grocery delivery service that was mission driven, took food that would go to waste in the farms and in manufacturers and delivered to your door. for about 30% less the grocery store. And so it's really cool to be on the other side now and get to mentor entrepreneurs and help them realize their dreams. So excited for this panel.
This is awesome. And when I met Ben, that's something Jeremy shares too. And, you know, we all have these like various superpowers, and being an entrepreneur is something I think all of us here share. And so it does give such a unique perspective. I think it's one of the reasons we all connect so well, because we understand the world so intimately on both sides of the table. So I love having you guys here, because it really is a more holistic, balanced, I feel, view. As you guys share what you're innovating and why what you guys are all doing is so innovative because of that unique, you know, you see all of the sides, so to speak. So that is super cool you brought that up. Ben, who would you like to pass this off to next?
Let's pass it off to Amy.
Thank you, Ben. Hi, everybody. I am Amy Wood. I work for Pepperdine Graziadio Business School. So I am a staff member and the program manager for our Most Fundable Companies program. And similarly to Ben, you know, we're not only limited to Pepperdine students and alumni startups. We have a free online resource that focuses on the diligence process. It's an educational tool and feedback reports for any US-based startup. So I can appreciate Maine, Kansas, Connecticut. We've had in the past 3 years participants in our program from all 50 states. And that's an important part of our mission, excuse me, which is to be a resource to startups and founders who may not otherwise have access to resources in their geography. We have online surveys and provide feedback reports to founders focused on the diligence process. So if a founder is interested in going out and raising outside capital, maybe they've done it before, maybe they haven't, but we hope to educate founders on what those potential investors might look for from them. And that doesn't mean if somebody doesn't get a good feedback report that it's not a good idea, it's not a good business. It's really just, you know, honing in on this one aspect of raising outside capital. And Alexis and I have had many conversations about this.
I feel like I should be snapping for that. Let's make more companies fundable, because they're great ideas. They just need to maybe have a little zhuzhing.
Well, that and you know, we layer on top of that free resource and those feedback reports that we provide for free to founders. We don't charge anything for what we do. We layer on top of that a competition and publish an annual list called the Pepperdine Most Fundable Companies list, where we feature the top 15 to 20 startups that we learn about each year. So we'll talk more. We're looking forward to our October showcase and announcing this year's winners. So.
Awesome. Very cool, Amy. And definitely all these things are just kind of like makes you want to get into the conversation even more. Of course, last but certainly not least, who would you like to pass the mic to, Amy?
Our friends at Trinity.
There you go.
Thank you so much, Amy. My name is Luis Martinez. I'm the Director for Innovation and Entrepreneurship at Trinity University. I am the one that does not look like the others. And so Trinity University is a selective residential liberal arts and sciences university located in San Antonio, Texas. We're a small school of approximately 2,600 students. We have 0 graduate programs with the exception of a master's in healthcare administration, a master's in accounting, and master's programs that help generate teachers and principals. So unlike our other colleagues, that we have no graduate programs, there is no MBA, and we're 100% undergraduate focused. And so we're singularly focused in our center in doing a couple of things. The first is that we serve all of our students, our faculty, our staff, and our alumni to be more innovative and entrepreneurial. So for our students, we run all our curricular programs. We manage a minor, we manage classes in entrepreneurship. Students can get a secondary major in entrepreneurship. We also major all the co-curricular programs. So what you would find with my colleagues, we have a venture competition where students get to win money to go ahead and launch their real ventures. That's associated with a summer accelerator program where they become a real business and do it for real. We're also one of the MIT sister VMS programs. And so we have a venture mentoring program where we serve both our students and our alumni in that particular program. And so it's all of that kind of soup to nuts thing. We're also in the process of launching our own venture fund. So we'll have an undergraduate directed venture fund that'll be writing checks at sort of pre-seed, seed, and A series for early stage startups. And our student body, aside from being residential, aside from being undergraduate focus, is also an emerging Hispanic serving institution. Approximately 46% of our students are underrepresented in various axes, and particularly as a potential Hispanic serving institution, 23% of our students are Hispanic. So it's this very kind of interesting place with our students and our student body. One of the second things that we do is that because of this kind of mix, we're not driven by tech transfer, although that's our office's job too. We're not driven by faculty who are research active, but in taking those patents and turning into businesses, that's not what our driver is. So our real main driver is then developing talent. Like, how do we develop outstanding talent? And so in addition to that kind of aspect of programs that we have this really phenomenal internship program called Students Plus Startups that we started here in San Antonio, first with Trinity University as sort of the beta, that's now been expanded nationwide to include students from all over the United States to come into San Antonio, have a fully paid summer internship experience with startups here in San Antonio to see the excitement of sort of being in startups and being in early stage businesses. If you are a FANG company, you have no problem recruiting students because everyone knows who Facebook and Amazon are. But if you're, Quick Solar, right? Like, who is that?
Yeah.
And so this is a way of helping students understand the opportunities that there are in sort of small businesses and startups, but also for startups to have a pipeline on outstanding student talent. And it's open for students from all over the United States to come and have this incredible startup experience. So we're about talent acquisition and developing talent. And this is some of the work that we're doing with our alumni as well. And then finally, the last thing that we are engaged in is helping build the ecosystem here in San Antonio. I believe all of us are here talking about sort of that ecosystem work that we do. We are one of the main sort of organizers for San Antonio Startup Week, which is coming up in October. We help sort of all the various accelerators here in town, all the various kind of co-working spaces here. We are like on the tip of the Texas triangle. So if you think about Texas and focus on Dallas-Fort Worth on one end, Houston on the other end, Austin, and then down south of Austin is San Antonio. We're that tip of where approximately 78% of all Texas lie. And so building that ecosystem around Austin, San Antonio is something we're committed to do as well. And that's something on the we play. And that's a little bit about us and the work that we do.
I love it. It's a great transition to really what I wanted to dive in next with everyone, because one of the things that excites me a lot about all of the programs that everyone is doing here is really focusing on this long-term vision about economic development and really also underserved founders, which we're starting to try to change the wordage of underserved to future founders, because we see the future of founders being diverse, and kind of switching away from maybe the negative tone of underserved, which tends to lean towards maybe handouts or, all sorts of other things. So what I love about all your programs is that it's very accessible, inclusive, and catering to or working on breaking down barriers that are maybe why we don't have more diverse ecosystems. So what I'd love to do is just share, let's just dive into that. Who are the underserved communities right now that you're trying to reach or that need to be brought into your existing ecosystem? Each one of us, you guys and us too, we're in a different part of the country. So it's very different what that means, an underserved founder. So if we could share kind of what underserved founder means in your area, or who it is for what you're focused on, I think that's a great place for us to start. So I'm going to start, actually. That'll be easy while everybody grabs their thought. So for underserved founders here with the RealRaise, I'm coming very much from a founder's perspective. this whole community came out of the pandemic. It started with a group of female founders, but it was something that really was just, we were looking to activate more resources and access funding. And that's one of the reasons that I came across Amy, because a lot of that is being prepared, being investable, increasing our odds, because right now the odds were not getting to a demographic that, of course, I am as a female founder. But even beyond that, we were seeing here in the Valley, as we started talking, I'm in San Francisco, that it wasn't just female founders. This is a lot of different demographics and groups. As we founders stopped worrying about competing next to the company next to us on a pitch stage, and we instead took a cooperative approach and started talking and saying, hey, what are your struggles, or how did you get around that, taking more of a cooperative approach. We started uncovering underserved founders here meant something much broader, and even if you were let's say an African American founder, or you were an Indigenous American founder, or whatever it might be, what we realized is, as we identified what we thought our underserved part was, it actually was something we all were sharing. So for us, it's just making sure that we have representation in the ecosystem. And we've broadened this from just women to, hey, look, we need representation from everybody, just like good ideas are in a team. The more diverse ideas, the better it is. Same for the ecosystem. So for our area here in San Francisco, it's expanding. I think we're realizing, hey, dividing off into these little groups and all trying to get, more attention is not necessarily the best way to go. Let's come together on all of us supporting one another. So for us, that's kind of where our underserved founder group is hopefully going to soon become the majority, because it'll just be inclusive and equitable for everybody. But I'll pass it to you guys in terms of maybe the target underserved founders that you're trying to reach right now.
I'll jump in and just, we're in Wichita, Kansas, and we are an urban serving university, and pretty much basically located right downtown. And some of our new programs are really more in the space of digital business transformation and targeting small businesses, so existing small businesses, not necessarily just startups, and just taking really some of the technology talent that we have with the youth that are coming through our programs, and being able to introduce them to this market that is there that they can't see. And that's small businesses that really were hurt by the pandemic. But if they had had some tools and resources, and maybe even just some talent just within their startup or within their businesses, they might have been able to compete with those larger companies that did have access to those digital tools. And so that's a big effort for us, is trying to figure out how to assist those businesses that were hurt. So more for a resiliency kind of thing, which, we keep hearing that word. And so we're doubling down on it. So at the moment, and I think for us, the other sort of topic that's really related to this and where our investments are is unique for us in our area. So for being within Wichita and the state of Kansas and having a Hispanic population that's around 11%, but really sort of driving towards being a Hispanic serving university, which is close to 25%, right? So, but the reason why this is impactful is because we have an in-state program. So anybody that lives within, Interstate 35 corridor, which so really goes all the way down to, Houston, so Dallas, so San Antonio, all the way down to Houston, so through San Antonio and now up to Chicago, and then you can go all the way across to I-70, so to Denver. So everybody within those areas, so get in-state. And so that has really changed the dynamics and the culture on campus, which has really allowed us to sort of waken up as an institution and start looking at how it is that we sort of act, because we really are a manufacturing community. And now we're getting this influx, and it's allowed us to sort of really shift and grow. So like a lot of other, ecosystems that are a step ahead. So it's allowing us to move a little bit faster.
That's awesome. And Ben, I know you have this gift, 200 million for the program, a really specific kind of charter almost of who those underserved founders are going to.
Yeah, and just, that's to seed the whole, I don't have $200 million, I wish I did. That's the seed, kind of the whole graduate school and a whole research arm, a whole learning arm, as well as entrepreneurship. In fact, entrepreneurship came into the plan a little bit later. I think, we have two specific charges, and Jeremy, I think what you said resonated, because we have a charge to bring, to help transform Maine's economy from being primarily hospitality and tourism based to bring the digital economy jobs. Maine has lost 10% of its population every 10 years. It's estimated we're going to have to add 70,000 people to meet the workforce demands over the next 10 years. And so in some ways we have that mandate, but at the same time, what makes Maine great is the fact that it has some of the highest small business ownership rates per capita, whatever. And so one of the things we've honed in on, which we haven't actually operationalized quite yet, is can we blend the talent piece, where we're training these students in computer science, data science, analytics, project management, and then place them with small businesses. We have a really robust partnership program. We have about 100 corporate partners that hire our co-ops. So Northeastern's signature talent program is that co-op or students take 6 months off to actually become a W-2 employee of a company. And so that is something we've really incentivized and pushed, is can we get Maine employers hiring Northeastern students to bring that skill set there. But specifically, and I know this question kind of, I took that and ran with it, but specifically, I run a year-long residency, which we call the first-time founder residency for underrepresented founders specifically. So 100% of our founders in that program have been BIPOC or female. And it's something that's interesting about Maine, because I think it's the second or third whitest state in the country. And so we haven't historically had a lot of racial diversity. We've had a lot of diversity in other measures where it's super rural, really high veteran population, income disparity between the north and south of the state. Anyway, and so, our goal is, I basically said when I took this role, if we're going to do this, we're not just going to recreate Boston or San Francisco. We're going to actually really try and diversify the ecosystem up in Maine. And so a lot of our programs are specifically focused on underrepresented founders. Yeah.
That's super exciting. And Amy, I'll pass over to you next.
Yeah. We think about this, certainly geography comes into play, and I can appreciate what Ben's saying. In Maine, that's always one of the places in the across the U.S. where it's harder for us to find founders. There's certainly economic aspects of founders too. A lot of it, right? When we're talking about matching startups with capital, a lot of the getting in front of an investor or even getting, on the table in front of somebody relies on the network effect of who they know, or who they're, who they can connect with, and then who those people know. So one of our aims is, through our process, is that we can come up with something that's a standardized evaluation that could be widely used for any company. And so if they come through a process like the one that we have, and we could say, yeah, this company, all else aside, their score, we're giving them a score, and their score alone, hopefully, could get them a look, as opposed to a lot of these other factors that come into play. So we're really looking to standardize. It's an ambitious goal. We kind of, we oftentimes use, we'd love to be like the FICO scoring process, but we know FICO took decades to, be adopted in the lending industry. So, that's kind of the pie in the sky, but we'll get there 1 year at a time and do what we need to do in order to level the playing field and drive the startup ecosystem.
I love that. Loving the player field is definitely a motto for us, for sure. And Louise, you touched on it because this kind of came directly from your initial, we're like full circle. I mean, you've got, you mentioned some groups. Is there anything you wanted to add in terms of this?
Sure, I'll add it. I'll add three real specific things. So the first group that we sort of serve is obviously our students. They're our students, and like how it is that we're addressing underrepresentation in that sense is we're thinking about them in the following way. Some of our students, regardless of their background, are first generation college students. They've never started anything ever before, or if they were aware, they weren't processed, they weren't part of the process. They don't come from means, they don't come from privilege. They don't have the network effects that Amy, you were talking about previously. And so we get to be that for them, right? You don't need the capital, we'll give you the capital. You don't have to worry about mentoring, we'll line you up with mentoring. You don't need a no venture capitalist or angel investors. We know them, or we have our own fund. And so part of how it is that we're addressing these underrepresented founders is that we're serving as that level for them so that everyone is playing on a level playing field. And what's exciting is that, with the sort of university entrepreneurship ecosystem of venture competitions and what you're doing and the kinds of things that are around, like they can work the circuit, right? And they do a thing in ours, and then they go to Rice's venture competition, and then they go to TCU's venture competition, and they participate in the one that's happening over in Pepperdine. Like it's this ecosystem of where you get to sort of see what other people are doing. It's sort of like college varsity sports for entrepreneurship, I guess, right?
Esports, I love it. Esports for entrepreneurship. Let's do it.
So that's
Love it.
the way in which we're doing that. But to sort of the kind of wider community that Ben and Jeremy sort of alluded to. I mean, we live in San Antonio, seventh largest city in the United States. It's a predominantly brown town. It's one of the major sort of population centers in Texas. What are we doing for them? So our university was brought to San Antonio in 1941 by the invitation of the Chamber of Commerce to help develop San Antonio, generally speaking, in economic development. And so we do work there in, helping traditional small business owners, and we work with, traditional sort of small businesses in not only providing them great talent, but also participating in sort of the targeted accelerators. I'm part of a great sort of incubator known as Break Fast and Launch, which is sort of like Techstars for food guys. And it's like, if I'm opening a food truck, like great, like you get all the benefits of like that process in the food truck. And if you're thinking about like starting a food product based company, if you're going to be selling salsa as an example, here in San Antonio, we know the commercial says we know how to make salsa here. And so,
Yeah.
You get to go through that process of, I trust you to be a really good cook to be able to make the tacos. We'll help you build the business to do that. And what's exciting about that project, and this is the third, is that we're working collaboratively and cooperatively with all the schools here in San Antonio. So we're working with the state schools, the components of the University of Texas system and Texas A&M system. There's the private institutions. We're sharing best practices amongst each other. We're coming together to the table and we're saying, you're going to learn X, Y, and Z from this person and from this school, and you're going to get interns from this school, and you're going to get business modeling from this school and financial assistance from this school, to where collectively we're all building and working and building and developing that ecosystem. So for these kinds of programs that we have in the accelerators, it's just not me from Trinity that's there, or it's not just me from Trinity that's organizing it, right? We're bringing our colleagues from these other institutions so that together we're all sort of working together to help these underserved founders. And what does underserved mean? You're not in Austin and you're not a tech bro, basically.
Yeah, pretty much, right? That is it. If you can imagine, I mean, there's any parody that you imagine of tech, the Zuckerbergs or
San Francisco and says, hey, look, we're underserved. We're not San Francisco or New York, right? So
we always said here, we moved to Silicon Valley so you don't have to. And we see that as the future, that you can be who you are you have your own superpowers, your own gifts, but yes, you have to, there's a process and there is a path for innovation, but it's not following a formula. and that doesn't have to be the formula. So let's change that so everybody can get to that same starting point, starting line. We've heard a lot about leveling the playing field from everybody. I love highlighting how you guys are all doing that slightly differently, and it's for your communities, right? So one thing that's really why this is such a great thing to have all of you here is we're looking at the United States and how diverse and how unique the challenges are in different areas, and how it's changing very quickly. And one thing I wanted to ask you on behalf of the community is right now, what have been the challenges? Because some of these things, when you say cooperation, what we've seen when we mention cooperation, they say, oh yeah, that's great. Put a hashtag on it. But then when it comes down to the conversation, they're actually not open, or they're actually very guarded, or I can't cross that line because, there's a conflict of interest. Because the reality of implementing these ideals and the reality of really changing this takes a finesse, which I think everybody here has, a huge amount of patience, because you're actually building bridges where previously that didn't exist. And those conversations are very difficult. They're challenging. I'd love to talk about that in terms of, what the difficulties and challenges are that your ecosystem trying to grow and expand, where are you seeing the friction with hey, when we try to connect here, it's a challenge, or maybe share how you got around it. Or you were saying, Luis, we kind of separated out different specialties so everybody could be, a leader at some point. But how did that conversation get started? Were they just yeah, let's meet up and hook up our networks?
I think it's one of the functions of geography, and I'm curious to see if Jeremy's experience in Wichita is the same. We're San Antonio. And so, we're the Spurs, baby. We've historically had this model and have these models of everyone's going to kind of pitch together and work together. We were the capital of Spanish Texas on the frontier. If you were in trouble in the United States, you fled to Spain or Mexico, and that was San Antonio. If you were in trouble in Mexico, you fled for the border, and that was San Antonio.
You could band together with your brothers.
You were in Louisiana and you were in trouble, you fled to San Antonio. Like people kind of came in here and you managed to be neighborly and managed to work together. So how those conversations started is that we have sort of geographically this culture of that's relational, that's rooted in our Spanish history and our Mexican history. My apologies for those of you who ever will visit us. There's no such thing as a 30-minute meeting in San Antonio. It's an hour long, because your families and oh yeah, and the kids, and then 20 minutes in, then we get to business, right? And so and if anyone who's done business in Spain or Italy, it's the same there too, right? Or Mexico, it's the same. So part of it is sort of the relational aspect of what it is. The other aspect, I made the allusion to it with the Spurs, is that it's about winning as a team. It's about winning as a region. It's about winning as a community. And when you got Austin up the street, and when you've got Dallas up the street, and when you've got Houston across the street, it's how can we think about building something for our community that's authentic, that is sort of really moving the path forward. And so it's about those kind of collaborative conversations. And then to end it, because I'm dying to hear what Jeremy.
No, this is fascinating, and this is very real.
The other thing that's, I think, really important is having the right decision makers at the table who are empowered to make those decisions. So I am fortunate that my institution enables me to do what I do and gives me the authority to do those things. And so it's that aspect of well, it's got to go to the chair, and then it's got to go to the dean, and then it's got to have a committee, and then it's got to go to the provost, and has another committee, and then it goes to the president, and then it goes to the board of trustees. The startup constituents that we work with, short term is not 3 years, but for university it is, right? And it's because of that process. So I think part of it was also not only a sense of collaboration and cooperation, that was an aspect of doing it for the community and for the team, but it's also having the people that are empowered with the budget to make those
Yeah.
decisions ready to go, so that when you're ready to go, it's going to happen. The authority is set, the budget is set, and you can make things happen. So I think that's sort of the combination of why we've been lucky, in the sense that we've managed to get the right players who had both the budget authority as well as institutional authority to make those commitments and to make it happen.
Yeah, that's huge. I'd love to hear, pass it around if this is something that you can really speak to, because this is what sharing this helps others that,
Right,
how you guys
right.
did it or are doing it.
Can I comment on two things? So one, right, we're all examples, and Luis, I love that. We're examples of schools doing, right? So we are teaching and we are doing, and we're living on both sides of that coin. And then secondly, what I love about everyone's programs is we're also serving the broader community, right? So for the audience who's watching this, right, wherever you live, and that there are resources for you that are local, across the educational institutions that are in your area, and they're available even outside of your area. So I just love that we all represent that.
Yeah, and that's rare. I mean, this is why we wanted to highlight your top programs, because that is something that's really going to create a huge impact. And this is something that's easier said than done, for sure.
Well, and I think, it's Luis, I know you're, I think it's Jeremy, sorry. One of you started off by saying, no, Luis, it was you saying that it's an elite, selective liberal arts, college. And it's funny. I went to Brown University, so I went to one of those, and Northeastern would never use any of those words. And I think we're seeing that, it's funny. I had a wonderful time at undergrad, and I really enjoyed it. And Brown especially kind of encouraged that community collaboration, social entrepreneurship. But 50% of the students, over 50% of the students in this country who are enrolled in college are enrolled in community college, I believe is the statistic. And you're never, and I poo-pooed online education, all that stuff, but you're never going to be able to actually scale and break down these walls if you don't. And so just to piggyback on your point, Alexis, I think the future of entrepreneurship universities has to involve the community, whether it's community members mentoring student entrepreneurs, or students providing talent to the community, or community coming in and getting services. I think this idea of there's 4 walls and you come here for 4 years and you leave is just not going to work in today's connected world.
Yeah, that's so true. And it's a bridge, but it's an ongoing, lifelong, if you do it right. And I think setting up this infrastructure that you are setting up in all your communities in various ways is laying the foundation for that to continue on. And that's what's amazing. I mean, it really is going to, just like the highways across America are going to accelerate, business and all of these things happening. You guys are laying down that similar infrastructure by starting to connect and make these difficult, meetings and discussions come out with some sort of collaborative solution that benefit everybody, and finding those win-wins. Jeremy, I want to pass over to you, because I know this is something too. You probably have some more to add on that.
Yeah, if we want to talk about barriers, we could be here, probably all of us, for hours and days, right? So that's an important part to understand. I think it's, pretty easy for all of us. We're all doing this stuff because we're pretty passionate about it. And, when we're really speaking to others and really engaging with the community, it's an easy thing for us to rally behind, because it's important and it's, part of our service. I think the part that's, gets lost is that, there's programs, but there's also that responsibility of what innovation program can do to the culture of the university, and these broader sort of impacts that for us, what we're really supposed to be doing. And we can't just narrow it down and say it's about this one person. And so, but we're talking about something the last person hanging on to the BlackBerry had to let go, right? And so we're in, there's no industry that's this big and completely immobile and as higher ed, right? I mean, it is it's just the way it is, right? And we work in places where we have leadership that's like, well, if you want to do that, give me a business proposal, right? So it's a business.
Yeah.
I mean, is it a business, right? So business means that if I give you a proposal, whatever plan it is, I might have some kind of return, but there isn't. It's just you do it. And so there is a strange culture in this shift when you have lots of cuts in the way that universities have gone, like the way that our culture is right now and how we interact with our community and the brands that we have across the nation and how we're so dependent on our customers, but we're not allowed to call them customers. So there's these things that are in play where we're trying to really push. And so for us talking about digital transformation, when the universities still have to go through it, right? So we're trying to push something that really we haven't really experienced through our own system, right? And and when we're talking about things like somebody comes up with this idea, to change, the taxi industry, right? So, well, it's very disruptive. Look at this. And when we go through higher education and we're looking at like a disruptability index, there's nothing more disruptible, right? So there's nothing out there that matches the kind of change that what we've done in 40 years compared to anything else, right? So the consumer price index, when we match it against it, we're so far behind. It's so ripe for disruption. And so something is going to have to either rally behind some of these things. Like for us, it's one thing to be a center or an institute, but it needs to be initiatives, right? And and it's hard when you have industry providing you this type of impact, and we have partnerships all over the place. But every year, the relationships that we have, or the kind of perceptions that the community may have about academics, that stuff just keeps dropping and dropping. And so it's hard to get across when you have heels in the ground, but you have basically industry and you're on the verge and you're watching all these things happen right in front of you. It's a very difficult and stressful position to be in when the culture wants to sell the experience, right? So you want to have football. We're at WSU doesn't have football, so our brand is less than a school that does have it, right? So that's just part of it. And so our leaves don't turn as red as they do at Northeastern, right? So that makes the value higher. And so it's all these things that customers, and right now it's parents and grandparents, and what they're investing in is, well, my kids have to have the same experience, but what they really want is the credential, right? So and how do we figure out how to deliver that? And so these programs, as many barriers as they are, they provide that professional kind of additive, right? So a degree is a degree, but do you really know how to learn? So if we want to talk about the future of work, and what is it that places are looking for? And so it's adaptable. And so by getting involved with programs that are being talked about here. So for us, we've had students actually be, in Amy's program and actually get awards. So, which is sort of cool. So, yeah. So, and they would probably be memorable as your Kansas students coming in. And so, they might've rode a horse in. So.
That's really cool.
Might have.
Yeah.
I want to piggyback on that for the people that are watching this webcast or recording.
Yeah.
We're all fortunate on the call to be working with the generation that you want to hire next year, this year, 4 years from now, right? So, why this is an exciting time, and especially for the kind of work that we do, is that this generation now also been shaped by COVID, right? So this is the class of 2022 is going to look very, very different than the class of 2018, right? Or the class of 2023 is going to look very, very different. This generation in particular is driven towards impact. They want to do something now. Paying your dues, writing in a cubicle and doing your spreadsheet, working through the chain, being at like a legacy company for 20, 30, 40, 50 years, that is no longer an option for this generation. So particularly for those on the call that are involved in developing innovative companies or startups or programs, like the talent wants to be in that space and work in the space. And I think that's really a critical change that's happening now. The second aspect that I think is really important, that I think all of us have stories and are dealing with, is that this generation also, in addition to being impact driven, brings their total selves to you in the workplace. And so you're going to know, for the Generation Xers that are in the room, or for the even, for the olders than those, it's a little uncomfortable because, sorry, boomer, you're going to get all of me, and you're going to hear about my entire life and what's important and what I care about and what drives me. And you're going to get that every day at work in your face. And you've got to be good with it, because older generations, you've had your chance, and I have zero tolerance for that kind of world now. And even more so with COVID, like it's sort of accelerated this sort of urgency.
The stake,
Putting the stake. And I think we look at the protests with George Floyd, and we look at the Black Lives Movement, like we look at sort of the urgency this generation is saying to no more change is happening. And so what makes our job, I hope, exciting, I'll speak for myself, but I hope I'm also speaking for the others, is that that's what entrepreneurship is, man. Like get something started, right? Go do something.
Totally.
And so we're helping train that generation, not only that will go start the thing and be transformative for their family, be transformative for their community, but we're training the people that are going to come and work for you, who have that skill set of being able to know, all right, well, we're going to figure this out, or we've got this new client and we've got to change everything, or COVID hit, or whatever. Like that, for me, I think is very exciting in the kind of work that we do. And it doesn't mean that our colleagues in the School of Businesses and Engineering and the humanities and the social sciences don't do that. They do, but in the context of like, back to the doing, which I think was said earlier, right? Like in the actual doing, like they're having that experience with us to then go off into the workplace. So please, if you're thinking about hiring, look for young talent, go to your colleges and universities, look in entrepreneurship programs, innovation programs. You're going to find the talent. You got to be aware they're going to be wanting to be impact driven. Everything they're going to want to do is going to have like some sort of like impactful outcome. But you're going to be really
self-motivated. They'll be amazing. That's so true. There is a passion. There's a fervor that's everywhere right now, and I feel like there's this reinvigoration of like us going back to the American dream. That you could take your idea and turn it into what it is that you do every day, and love what you do, and go down that path. And that's, I think, definitely invigorated. And the numbers are reflecting that in the pandemic, the number of small businesses opening. I mean, this is all showing everywhere. Ben, I know you work with a lot of enthusiastic young people. Are you seeing the same energy in Maine as well?
It's funny, we're seeing a few things, and our student population is really interesting. It's a mix of people that are upskilling, so a lot of full-time employed people that are taking courses nights, weekends to upskill. It's also a lot of international students that are got their undergrad overseas and are making this as a master's for the first time in the US, as well as more traditional, like you'd imagine someone who's 22, 23 out of college and doing a master's in computer science. In general, we're seeing a lot of, like, we've always had the problem, it's like this is a broad statement. Everyone's always wanted to live in Maine. That's probably broad, but like everyone's always wanted to live in Maine. We don't have to answer the question of why live in Maine. We have to answer the question of like, can we make it possible for you to do what you want to do? Like you might have gone to a college there, but you couldn't find a job working in industry, so you left. And we're seeing a lot of like we call boomerangs. So people that are now coming back because it is possible. We are seeing, I don't know if anyone else seeing this, we are seeing a little bit in the last 3-4 months slowdown of interest in startups as I would say our graduates are a little bit more focused on job security. And I think some of the like macroeconomic trends that they've heard about in the press with tech layoffs, et cetera, are just like, hey, I just spent a decent amount of money on a master's degree. Like, I would love to make sure that I have this job for a few years. But overall, very like a lot of excitement for entrepreneurship and startups in general, and just having to balance that with some economic realities, which I think is a totally it's very privileged for me to say like, great, just take a chance on a startup coming out of college. If you have to provide for a family, if you have student debt, etc., there's just a bunch of things you have to consider.
Yeah, there's, Amy, I'd love to see how your applicants, because they are across the whole country, are they shifting? Are you seeing changes in who they are? Are the numbers similar? What are you seeing on your end maybe they're not to the diligence part yet. Some of this is just timing. We see one indicator over here, maybe before it's gotten to the diligence part. I don't know. What are you seeing?
Well, yeah, I think, I'll just go back to students and our academic programs for a moment. Right. Luis mentioned higher than young generation coming out. I mean, that there are many forms to interact. There's hiring, there's, for full-time jobs upon graduation, internships. Northeastern does this so well. But, whether they're a graduate student, undergraduate student, needs meaningful work experience before they come out of their program. There are also student consulting projects and, formalized programs. Ours is called E2B, Education to Business. We love connecting, the big corporate names are important for that, for that program, but also, I think the students get great experience coming and interacting and doing projects are just tremendous, right? I mean, that's free consulting. So I just want to highlight those again for everyone who's watching this webinar, because there's so much out there and that comes in many forms. So just want to highlight those.
Yeah.
And then, we're in a very interesting, what are we seeing out there? I mean, we're in a really interesting investment cycle right now, right? So we're hearing investors are pulling back. They've been focused the past few years on their current portfolio. How are they going to, and what kind of a return are they going to generate? And, VCs were coming earlier, investing in earlier stage companies. So right now it's everyone's just kind of saying, we don't know what's going on. It's, if anyone can predict the future, that's amazing. So I think all the more reason that we expand our networks. We have the programs like the ones that we're seeing here, and we continue to focus on our communities.
Yeah, networking, making those, because the good thing about the I don't know this is half glass full founder here talking, is the I don't know is, okay, we can make it a I do know. And okay, if it's not a tide that's shifted totally to a no, that means I only have to push it a little bit. So some of the state of mind for some of the founders that we're seeing is charge forward, best time. If somebody's hesitating, it's easy yes or no, get them off your list. So if anything, it's on the founder side. If you're comfortable with charging forward, which most founders that are going to be successful right now, this is a huge opportunity, a huge moment of opportunity for entrepreneurs. And so I just want to share that with the founders out there, because I have a big, I see a direct correlation similar to the stock market. If something goes out, a tweet goes out, and then you see the whole market run, it's not really because that company went up in value that day, it's perception. And so I always try to remind the founders, that's TechCrunch's perception, paid for by a VC whose agency has paid for them to do so many articles for them. So the opportunity is, while everybody else slows down, now you're going to be the one charging forward, and there are investors out there. And that was just maybe one particular niche. So I'm always like, hey, could be a huge opportunity. You might need to go a different direction. You might not want to go after VC money anyways, which a lot of founders are looking for alternatives anyways. But that's just something I want to throw in there from the founder perspective, because I love, founders love gray areas, right? Because that means there's room to move before people know you're going to move, and there's room to, be disruptive before, so just know, that's up to us and leaders like you to navigate a new way or a way that hasn't been blocked. And that's the shortcuts that are going to make it like, oh, now in 2 years we're going to be reporting there's a huge surge. Well, yeah, because Louis found a way to connect this, and Jeremy found a way to get the businesses involved, and as we all pull these things together while everybody's like hesitating and I don't know. I mean, we're in a room right now of all the people that are working on the infrastructure, so that 2 years from now, right, these results are something positive. And so I think having you guys today in this conversation of I don't know is very exciting, because I bet we can have this panel in 2 years. And because of the group here and thinking this way now, we're going to basically create the tide of how it's going to go. And hey, if VCs want to pull back and get off the wave, no problem. We'll take the tide from here. And I think there's a huge opportunity for all of us, but that's just me interjecting because it's kind of fun to hear it. Jeremy, what are some of your thoughts on this right now for your in Kansas?
I think, it's exciting time, right? I think that, we sit in an area where we have to take these opportunities as fast as possible, and even when we get our wrist slapped for it. And that's a really important part, right? So for us to have even somebody that might be doing well, that has a great idea, and maybe it's med tech related, and Wichita is not a med tech town, so we got to get them out, and that has to be the support that we provide. And having the ecosystem know that was the appropriate thing versus, well, wait, we didn't want talent to leave. So, or that kind of battle of, how do we get, if there's 5 people that didn't get into Ben's program, we need to go get them, right? So that constant scramble for talent, I think, is tough. And part of it is that word is like getting really hard because universities are branding all around it. And there's a huge difference between talent, and in my opinion, that means a degree, versus mindset, versus in that's somebody that knows how to lead and somebody that's very agile. And being able to be around like-minded people is really important. And I think that's we're in this constant kind of situation. All these things are, amazing. And there's all these things that are being unfolded in front of us. And I think it's making sure that we don't say, it's very hard. I'll say it's not easy to say no to things, because we don't know if that's going to be something, the opportunity we've been waiting for. We aren't in an ecosystem where those things are just everywhere. It's not 2008 in Stanford and you say the word app and an investor jumps out of the closet kind of thing, right? Yeah. So it's our group, when they do have good ideas, they're really resistive, right? So from a cultural standpoint, because of where we are, it's to go to Boston, they have to practice saying the word million. So they are very afraid that, they're going to get up there, even though they've done this amazing work, and they can get up and go, look what we did, it works. But in Boston, they're going to have some person with, 5 PhDs that speaks 10 languages and say, I think I can cure cancer. And they're going to ask for $50 million, and that person's getting attention. It's a hard thing for our core. So when we're working with our culture to overcome. And so the barriers, I think, are sort of interesting. And I think from a standpoint of how this grows in a ecosystem where we have resistance. So in that resistance being something like a presidents across the country right now, right, it's just like, well, everything has to go back to normal. So everything's about the experience. That's what we sell. So we're reporting to people that are a little bit resistive to the advancements that we just had over the past couple of years. And so to not be able to see what an amazing opportunity that was, but to basically have that wall up to go, whoa, 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 there's only one model that's sort of been working for the past 300 years. So we need to get back to it. And I'm realizing this is recorded, so I probably have to be a little careful about what I'm saying. So,
it's across the Midwest, it's across the East Coast, it's the West Coast. I think one thing, I see so many heads nodding in the room, you know, this is the reality, but that's a good thing to share, because if we don't, you know, you think you're the only one, or it's just yours, or, you know, versus sharing, oh, this might be how to get around it. And you know, like you said, we could sit here all day talking about how difficult and all the barriers, but what's exciting about you guys here in the room is you've been able to push through with finesse and diplomacy and all the other things, all the skill sets that it takes, cultural understanding to navigate those waters. And you know, this is the real friction that you all have in your roles, because you are in a system that is, you know, it's a very different structure than the free form of, you know, being truly more of an artist's mind. You know, like it's an entrepreneur, it's being creative, and innovation is very creative. It's a different flow. The fact that there is a flow and it's not so structured all the time. So I definitely hear what you're saying, and I think this is really amazing. And I know we're about to wrap up, but this is something I could seriously sit on and have for another hour with you guys. It's fascinating to hear. What I'd love to do is share what it is right now that your programs are looking for that would help accelerate something this quarter. So think about this upcoming quarter. Is there, you know, is it a part? Maybe if a quarter is too soon, change the time frame to whatever it might be, but something that's very actionable. One thing we talked about, we're all about doing. We're here to use entrepreneurship as a muscle, not as a playbook. And one of the things that I'd love for us to do is end on a note that's like, okay, what can we do today to help you, because this is going to be in front of our virtual village, hit that next milestone or break through the barrier that you're trying to break down right now. And we know the big goals, so don't worry about the big goal right now, but like literally to get you to one step closer. So that I'd love to pass around, because I know that changes every quarter, but if there's one thing that our community can try to help you do or ask, we'd love to share that with them.
I'll start. Okay.
I love it. Yeah.
Well, so, I mean, we all, and I think it's important for us to acknowledge our institutions who support our work. And, you know, we have, for the program that I run, there are 2 foundations that are significant that enable the work that we do. We have the Singleton Foundation for Financial Literacy and Entrepreneurship. People should know about them and their work. And we have the Graziadio Foundation. We have many supporters, but I just want to call out those 2 specifically. And then our ask, for the next quarter, we're going to be announcing our list winners in October, and their companies, their startups from across the U.S. who are seeking investment. So consider them, make some noise about them, check them out, join us in October.
Awesome. Love that. And all the resources that are being mentioned throughout the talk today, we'll make sure they're easy for everyone who's watching to click and find. So don't worry if you're not taking notes. Just enjoy the end here with everybody as well. Who'd like to go next? I saw Jeremy pop it. I mean, whoever grabbed the mic, feel free.
Yeah, I think that was a pretty easy question for I mean, there's obviously a number of things, but, you know, always the first thing that pops into mind, you know, is what are the students really needing, right? And from where we are, I believe that we get the most out of our students when we can get them off campus early. And so to get an experience. And so, you know, for us, we've been putting together, a type of a strategy and kind of gamify this to where, our students would be able to visit other, entrepreneurial ecosystems, and that might be going to San Antonio, and so in a 24-hour period, they would have to go down, visit with a couple startups. So
Cool.
find things that are related. They have some problems. They have to make it back. They have to pitch what they saw, and to just get them sort of motivated to sort of see other, young talent and what it is that they're doing and the kind of problems that they have. Like, everybody sees these success stories so all over the news, and unfortunately that's making, sitting in a classroom or doing a degree very tough, because he dropped out and he's worth billions. So
Yeah.
so that's the lottery, right? But the how to actually get there, and there is a discipline, right? So for innovation, we give out a degree in it, so that there is a process, and so and we're really trying to figure out how to make those visits and see what other places are really doing, and getting students, boots on the ground. So they need to go and see and get that experience and bring it back and then do it again. And so just that's really where we're sitting from what we think would be the most impactful things for our students right away.
Amazing. I love that idea, and definitely I identify with that. I've shared this with Jeremy and others. I wouldn't be here doing what I'm doing if it wasn't for experiences, studying abroad, interning in another country, working for many different, that's part of the path and part of the journey, not necessarily the degree that sits on the wall, and often things that I draw from on a daily basis. So I think that's
very
phenomenal.
difficult. I mean, it's a good thing to bring up, Alexis, because it's not, what youth are going through in university right now is not what we experienced. You don't get to go and just say, I want to take a 1 credit hour swim class. There are policies in place, right? And universities get more funding if students are graduating in 4 years. So the 15 credit hour semester, anything out of your degree, so is, not going to be funded through your financial aid. There are so many things in place right now that reduce that external experience that helps really build, you into an adult, and that kind of experience to know how to fail and how to engage with people outside of your ecosystem. And so I think it's why that becomes such a hot priority versus they can just go join a international class or, go to Spain on exchange. And it's just those things are now.
I love it. We'll pass over Ben or Luis, who'd like to go next with your ask. What can we help you accomplish?
Because my ask is easy. I'm raising a fund, so give me some cash, please. Our fund is a little different. So the goal is a philanthropic gift to our institution, and then we will then be writing checks. And so if there are people on the call who want to get a little piece of that action, we'll have a little sidecar for you where you can go ahead and get that return. But we're going to get great deal flow. I'm looking forward to talking with Amy about being a part of our deal pipeline. It's just a matter of putting that capital out. And what's interesting about our fund, in addition to being a philanthropic fund that's coming to the institution, in addition to the fact that students will be actually making the investment decisions.
That's huge. Right there, I just want to applaud, because that alone is huge. Thank you for doing that in a very innovative way.
We're going to generate a whole new generation of people who know how to do, Amy, to your point, due diligence and understand the importance of early stage investment and understand and weigh that thing. But the other aspect is that at least 30% of our fund will be targeted underrepresented founders. So we'll be founding and we'll be investing in women-owned businesses, Latinx-owned businesses, Black-owned businesses, Indigenous, first generation, veteran-owned, Southeast Asian, AAPI, like that's where the LGBTQ. If you're in that space, we're interested in investing in that fund. And so we're it looked a lot easier in October and September last year that we were going to be able to make this target. if people want to give us a philanthropic gift of any size, we're happy to put it into our fund and then turn that around and be investing in some great companies that are going to be coming out of Maine, and great companies coming out of Wichita, and great companies
right.
of the Pepperdine program. We're excited to be sitting at the table writing checks, because we'll be doing
Yeah. I love it. Let's open this floodgates. I have a feeling more things are going to come from this that will help these floodgates. And this is part of why we're here today. Congrats on the fund. And by the way, what is the big goal number? Just throw it out there.
We'd like it to be 2 mil, but we were back of the envelope planning 5, but now we can do 2 with the current macro environment. We'll do 2. But our goal is to be investing a minimum of $200,000 a year, completely managed by students. And so with that kind of number, we will be a major investment vehicle in Texas at that rate.
Fantastic. And if anybody out there, because we do have quite the audience that I think here is we're showcasing everybody, you could always add zeros. Any fund can grow faster, any deployment of capital faster is better. So just adding that in because it's helpful. We got to do this now. There is urgency. So let's pass over to Ben. I'm excited to hear what your ask is for your ecosystem.
Louise, we should talk. We're also setting up a few different funds, and so would love to trade stories on that. Ours are all different. Ours are actually to support the companies that we run through our accelerators and incubators, so it's programmatic. But would love to chat about the nuances of setting up a fund within the structures of a university and a nonprofit. Yeah.
Count me in that conversation too, please.
That's another panel right there. Yeah. That's a fascinating one. Maybe Q4, we'll see.
For us, I have 2, which is similar, which is like we have now 36 companies that have run through our programs in the last 2 years. They've raised about $18 million, but they're all kind of a decent number of them are currently actively raising their seed or Series A rounds right now. So we're always looking for investment for that. And the second thing is we partnered with the 2 largest health systems in Maine to launch a Future of Healthcare founder residency, where we'll bring 10 early stage healthcare companies to the state over the next 3 years, or every year over the next 3 years, and give them access to clinicians and testing data and pilots with our health systems. And so we're starting to get the word out to early stage health tech companies, digital health, probably anything short of a therapeutic will do, but focus on digital health infrastructure. So if you know companies in that space that are looking for a program, and there is an investment component of that, we'll make an investment in the companies as well. Applications will open up this fall.
This is very exciting, and all these links and all the ways to connect, just know we're going to package this up so it's very easy to connect with everybody here. There'll be no middlemen. I'll go directly through. That kind of brings me to our ask for this. We're part of the ecosystem because we're definitely focused, we transact on connecting the dots. These are just some of the resources and dots that we're hoping to connect. Our ask would be, if there's any opportunity for an event with a university who's not working with us yet, we transact in the platform to partner with us at an event. We definitely want to make sure it's a win-win. It feels right. It's exciting. We love to hear the feedback along the way. Of course, Jeremy, you've had your Igniter program on it, and now the second program and upcoming one. So we are very excited this year to be ready and expanding. So any university, our goal is to really connect with the innovation ecosystem here. Help us so that all these things that we had, just seeing in this room to us is what it's all about. And our goal is that when there's talent here and there's funding here and there's due diligence over here, and you connect all these dots, which is kind of the goal of the We Transact platform. You could have your own system privately doing its thing, but with AI to now connect and manufacture that serendipity and connect those dots to provide your school and your students or entire ecosystem with those real-time opportunities, so that they're not waiting until they find out about it, but they're alerted and saying, hey, look over here, or hey, look, whether this due diligence or a little bit more. So that's what we're looking to really start connecting now that our infrastructure is ready to get out. So we are doing a shared event with anyone free who'd like to try it out, see what it's like, experience it. But that's our big goal and picture. And just having this conversation today is a blessing for us and the RealRaise community, because it is a frame shift. A lot of people don't realize we're all facing similar challenges and we all have different resources. And these conversations are difficult to have because we're already doing 10 hats and jobs and everything at the same time. So we don't have a lot of extra time. So by meeting together quarterly like this, thank you so much. I hope this helps others in the RealRaise community as well as the HER Coalition to think about how you can start maximizing these opportunities, supporting everyone here, vice versa, sharing what you're working on. So as we get this quarterly update to everybody, we can really connect with the people who, like I said, it's about connecting people right now at the right moment in time to get them one step closer. And if we can really do this and streamline this together, then hopefully we're making a difference that way. So that's our ask. It's more of an open invitation than an ask. And before we go, this is really, thank you, Luis, Amy, Jeremy, Ben. This has just been like, it flew by, and I'm excited to share this with everyone. Any resources you guys want to share, send my way. I'll include them, and we can't wait to see how all the programs and hopefully hear back. I'd love to hear, maybe next quarter we'll just do an email check-in and share with everybody if you helped reach that goal. I really put a lot of pressure on the virtual village to challenge everybody to make sure we help you guys reach the goals that you mentioned today in those apps. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Great to see everyone. Enjoy.
It's great to see everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Great fall. Take care.
Bye.
Bye.